Millions of Syrians are facing possible bloodshed in Idlib province as the Assad regime prepares to recapture the last major rebel stronghold. Russian President Vladimir Putin, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, and Turkey's Recep Erdogan are holding a crucial summit on Syria today.
They're meeting in Tehran to discuss the war and looming battle in Idlib. Rouhani says America's intervention in Syria should immediately end. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, issued a stern warning for Syria and its allies.
And the Russian Federation has recently been building up its naval forces off the coast of Syria, signaling that Moscow is prepositioning itself to once more abet the murder and mayhem of the Assad regime. And as has happened numerous times in the past, there are signs that the Assad regime is planning to use chemical weapons to finish off the siege of Idlib.
Well, for more on this, I want to bring in CBSN contributor Willis Sparks. He writes for Signal, a newsletter produced by GZERO Media. So, Willis, we have this summit happening right now, actually, but we also sort of have an idea of what is of interest to the power players here. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said earlier the fires of war and bloodshed in Syria are reaching their end. He wants America to pull out. We're hearing now that Turkey suggested a ceasefire, which was opposed by Russia. Give us a sense of, what these countries want and how important this summit is.
We have to take a step back first. Syria has been in civil war for 7 years. 500,000 people have been killed. 12 million Syrians have been driven from their homes. We're now on the verge of the last major battle of that civil war. It's very clear that President Assad in Syria is going to win. This is the last battle, and there is a very serious risk that this is going to be the bloodiest fight of the entire war. Because what's happened is, as Syria has gained back territory, all of the people who have been pushed out of the places where they've been fighting in the past have all ended up in this place called Idlib province, which is in the northwest of the country, very near Turkey's border. This is the last stand of rebels, terrorists, and there are 3 million civilians, men, women, and children, who are caught in the line of fire. So what we have today is a meeting that you referred to in your question in Tehran between the president of Turkey, Recep Erdogan, President Vladimir Putin, and Hassan Rouhani, president of Iran, where they're trying to see, is there a way that we can avoid the bloodshed, that we can engineer a surrender of the rebels so that we don't have to go, fully into this place with 3 million people caught in the crossfire. The problem with this is, of course, Turkey wants a ceasefire because Turkey doesn't want a huge battle in this place that is going to drive hundreds of thousands more refugees across the border into Turkey. Right. Turkey is already home to 3 million Syrian refugees. They don't want any more refugees. That's their main concern here is, let's not have a battle that pushes a whole nother wave, in this case maybe a tidal wave of people over the border into Turkey. Iran and Russia are allies of Syria's Bashar al-Assad. They want this over. And while the UN is saying, look, there's 3 million people caught in the crossfire, let's create a humanitarian corridor to allow those people to escape so they're not in harm's way, the Russians and the Iranians are saying, if you let the innocent people out, the terrorists are going to go with them. It's time to finish the war. So there's a lot of pressure from Russia and Iran and Syria to just go in there and level this place. Now, the role that the U.S. is playing, the Trump administration is doing what any U.S. administration would do, which is to say to Assad, you have used chemical weapons in the past. You know it and we know it. You better not do that again. If you do, you're going to pay a price for it, and you won't know what that price is until you've already crossed the line. This has been going on for years. President Obama had to deal with it. President Trump is dealing with it right now. The UN is saying it is credible that the Syrians are going to use chemical weapons here. The whole world is going to be watching for that for reasons that go well beyond Syria. But what's at stake here, really, beyond the humanitarian crisis of 3 million people caught in the crossfire of what may be an absolute conflagration, is the risk that you're going to have another tidal wave of refugees. The Europeans are watching that. We've got an election this weekend in Sweden. Italy's politics is totally defined by immigration politics right now. Germany is obviously very concerned about this. We're seeing this play out across Europe, and Turkey is at the front line, again, because they are housing so many refugees. Everyone is watching little Idlib province and what's going to happen there this weekend, and there is a real concern that it is going to be an awful battle.
You talked about the U.S. role, and we just heard from Nikki Haley. We played that soundbite of Nikki Haley talking about the potential use of chemical weapons if Assad is moving in on Idlib. The question, I guess, is, based on your analysis, does the U.S. have a plan?
No. It's too late, honestly. There isn't really... The U.S. plan is just don't let this man use chemical weapons because, again, President Obama dealt with this. President Trump has been dealing with this. When one leader uses chemical weapons, if you don't take forceful action against that, everyone around the world who is watching that might have access to these kind of weapons will be tempted to use them in the future. So it isn't just about Syria. The U.S. has to do this. They have to draw a red line. And if they use chemical weapons, then the U.S. needs to take some action that says it's too late to save Syria. But at the very least, the message has been sent. If you used weapons that are banned under international law, you will always pay a price for it. And that's really what the U.S. is left with, because frankly, it's too late to do anything. You can try to negotiate this humanitarian corridor. Yeah. But beyond that, this is the end of the war, and what we're really talking about is just how bloody this last battle is going to be.
And it sounds so incredibly dire.